Moonlight pierced through the dense tree crowns, creating a bizarre pattern of silver spots on the ground. The forest seemed calm and peaceful, but Andre knew it was a deceptive tranquility. He had been wandering these trails for an hour, trying to find his way back to his car. Suddenly, he heard a branch crack. He turned around. No one. Only dark silhouettes of trees swayed in time with his breathing. Hallucinations, Andre thought, but the unpleasant feeling didn't go away. He moved on, trying to stay in open areas, and then he noticed it, an old hunting lodge. Maybe there's someone there, a thought flashed. Andre approached, pulled the door, locked. At that moment, he felt the cold muzzle of a pistol at the back of his head. "Quiet," a voice whispered. "Don't move if you want to live." Andre froze. He knew people had disappeared in this forest before. Locals whispered about a maniac who hunted lost travelers. "Why are you here?" The voice sounded calm, almost friendly. I got lost," Andre choked out. Silence. Only the stranger's breathing grew heavier. "In my forest, one doesn't get lost. In my forest, only I choose who gets out." A chill ran down Andre's spine. He realized this was the maniac the rumors spoke of, and now he was deciding his fate. "You have two options," the stranger continued. "Either you join my guests, or—" He didn't finish. Sirens howled in the distance. The maniac retreated, dissolving into the darkness of the forest. Later, Andre learned that in that day, a large-scale operation to catch a dangerous criminal had been conducted in the forest. But that night, he was face to face with his fear and with the realization that death had passed very close. They say that sometimes on full moon nights, you can still hear the rustle of footsteps and quiet laughter in the thicket. The forest keeps its secrets, and with them, the shadow of someone who still considers these places his own. 2 months had passed since then. Andre tried not to remember that night, but the forest haunted his dreams. Dark silhouettes of trees, cold metal of a pistol at his head, quiet laughter of the maniac, all this wouldn't leave him alone. He moved to another city, changed jobs, but fear remained. One day, flipping through a local newspaper, Andre saw an article, "Traces of illegal hunting discovered in the forest near the city." The photo of the crime scene seemed familiar to him. Unable to resist, he called the police. He told about that night, about the encounter with the maniac. The investigator listened very attentively. "We've been trying to catch this criminal for several years," he admitted, "but he's too cunning. Every time he gets away." At night, Andre had a strange dream. He was in the forest again, but now he wasn't alone. Someone was following him, quietly rustling fallen leaves. "You can't run away from me," a familiar voice whispered. "This forest is my home." Waking up in a cold sweat, Andre realized the maniac knew about his call to the police, and now he was hunting not just random travelers, but him. The next day, he received a letter with no return address. Inside was a photograph, a picture of his house taken from different angles, and a note, "I'm always near, even when you sleep." Andre understood. Now he was part of the maniac's game, a game where only he set the rules, and the only way out was to find the killer before he found him. But how do you catch someone
who knows the forest better than any hunter, who reads tracks better than a tracker, who lives in the thicket like in his own apartment.
Andrei began to study the forest. He walked around the area, memorized trails, looked for unusual tracks, and the more he learned, the clearer he understood. The maniac wasn't just a killer. He was part of this forest. He was its keeper, its guardian, its shadow. And now Andrei had to decide, either become part of this shadow or leave the forest forever, leaving it to someone who owned it by right. The forest greeted Andrei with damp, chilling air and an oppressive silence that pressed on his ears worse than any noise. He moved cautiously, trying not to step on dry branches, but every step echoed in his soul with the panicked memory of that fateful night. A familiar clearing came into view ahead. It was here that he had first encountered the maniac. Andrei froze, listening to the rustles of the forest. A branch cracked in the distance, and his heart skipped a beat. He moved forward when suddenly the ground gave way beneath his feet. The trap snapped shut with a terrible metallic screech. Andrei hung suspended in ropes, kicking helplessly several meters above the ground. "Caught, little bird," a familiar whisper came from behind. The maniac emerged from behind the trees, slowly approaching his prey. "You know," he said, circling around the suspended Andrei, "you came into my game yourself." His face was hidden in shadow, but mad gleams danced in his eyes. He drew a hunting knife, running his finger along the blade. "Why?" Andrei croaked, trying to break free. "Why are you doing this?" The maniac laughed. The sound echoed through the forest. "This is my home, and you are the intruder. Everyone who comes into my forest must pay." He began to slowly circle his victim, like a predator playing with its prey.
"Do you think the police will find you?" The maniac leaned close to Andrei's face. "Here I am the law. Here I am the judge. And here I decide who lives and who dies." Suddenly he froze, listening. The distant wail of police sirens could be heard. The maniac cursed but did not retreat. "Leave," Andrei whispered, feeling strength leaving him. "Please." The maniac smiled, but there was nothing human in that smile. "No," he replied. "Now you are part of the forest. You will become its keeper, just like me." He pulled out an object from his pocket. Andrei saw the gleaming steel of a trap. "Farewell," the maniac said, and at that moment the forest around them seemed to freeze, holding its breath, ready to accept a new victim into its dark collection. But suddenly, something changed. Headlight beams broke through the trees. The police! The maniac retreated, melting into the darkness, but the trap had already snapped shut. Andrei heard the crunch of breaking bones and a piercing scream, but couldn't tell whose it belonged to, his or his tormentors, because at that moment the whole world around him plunged into darkness. Darkness engulfed Andrei, but consciousness remained. He felt blood running down his face, the throbbing pain in his broken leg. Police flashlights probivalis squeezed tree crowns, but they seemed so far away. The maniac watched the scene from his hiding place. His eyes burned with the excitement of a hunter who had finally cornered his prey. But he was not alone now. Investigator Petrov, who had been working on this case for years, had finally tracked down the criminal. "Come out," a hoarse voice called from the darkness. "I know you're here." The maniac smirked. He could run, disappear into the labyrinth the forest trails, but something kept him there. Perhaps the desire to look into the eyes of his final victim.
Did you think you could hide in your forest forever? Petrov continued, moving closer. Suddenly, the forest filled with the sounds of an approaching operation. Helicopters, dogs, dozens of police officers. The maniac realized this was the end. He took a step forward, emerging from the shadows. His face was twisted in rage and despair. A knife gleamed in his hand. "This forest is mine!" he shouted, rushing at Petrov. But the investigator was ready. A brief exchange of blows, and the maniac was on the ground, handcuffed. His mad gaze still burned, but now he was powerless. Andrei was evacuated on a stretcher. Doctors worked quickly and professionally, saving his life. When he opened his eyes in the hospital, the first face he saw was that of the investigator. "You're alive," Petrov simply said, "and that's what matters." The forest was never the same. Police combed every inch, destroying traps, finding evidence of past crimes. But the maniac's shadow still lingered over these places, reminding that even in the most beautiful forest, horror could hide. Andrei recovered. He never returned to that forest, but sometimes, closing his eyes, he still heard that whisper and felt the cold steel against his neck. As for the maniac, he received a life sentence, but even behind bars, he continued to claim that the forest belonged to him, that he was its keeper, that his soul would forever remain there, among the trees, waiting for new victims. And on full moon nights, the forest still kept its secrets, whispering stories about how some places are better left untouched, about how not everything that seems beautiful and alluring is safe, and about how every forest has its price for trespassing into its domain.